In this Roll for Crit preview, we're taking a look at Winds of Numa Sera, the board game. Based on the comic of the same name, you will take control of one of the kingdoms of Ethera, where you will be duking it out in order to complete one of many different victory conditions. Will you try to slowly gather up power in order to prove you're a master and a legend? Or is it all-out war, where you need to show off how you're a champion and a conqueror? Let's see whether this game has what it takes to add you as its victory condition in order to be funded and prove to be a great game on your shelf as well. So let's dive in and see what the Winds of Numa Sera has to offer for you. Roll for Crit was contacted and paid in order to make this preview for this game's crowdfunded campaign. All items shown here are a prototype of the game and are subject to change in the final version of the game. Winds of Numa Sera is all about taking your kingdom and trying to make sure you complete one of the multiple victory conditions in order to claim that final victory over the other kingdoms. Now, when I say one of multiple victories, there are 4 possible victory conditions, and if you're playing a short game, you only need to complete one of these. If you're playing a longer one, you'll need to complete at least 2. These victory conditions, starting from right to left, is Master. This refers to the skill cards you see at the top of the central area. These skill cards will give you bonuses, such as increasing your attack stat for every level you have in that skill. Now, there are 5 different kinds of skills, and in order to progress in those skills, you will need to spend 10 coin equal to the level that you're buying. And if you are able to take one to level 4, that means you have claimed the Master Victory condition. Next up is the Conqueror. This involves the Stronghold cards here. You will gain strongholds by battling and defeating them. If you are able to gain control of 4 of these, then you will have completed the Conqueror Victory condition. Next up is Champion. When Conqueror involved attacking and gaining control of strongholds, Champion wants you to defeat opponents' heroes. These are the cards you'll see printed here. If you are able to take a hero's power, aka their health, down to 0, you're going to take the card and tuck it in up here. If you're able to gain 3 of those, then you have completed the Champion Victory condition. Finally, there's the Legend. This will involve the class cards. Each player has the same 5 class cards, which will be unlocked based on different actions you take throughout the game, such as, for example, controlling 2 strongholds. If you're able to unlock all 5 classes, then you have completed the Legend Victory condition. Remember, for a short game, you only need to complete 1 of these. However, for a longer game, you're going to have to complete at least 2. However, let's go back to how the game begins. You're going to choose one of the 4 kingdoms. Then you're going to gain the 3 heroes for that kingdom and place them in a line of succession, aka the order you're going to play these heroes in. After you choose in your order, you're going to look at the stats printed on the topmost hero, in this case, an attack and defense of 1, as well as a power of 10, and write them in the bottom of the board there. If at any time your power would drop to 0, then that hero is slain. Now, if it's slain by another opponent, as I was talking about with the Champion Victory condition, then they're going to claim it as 1 step closer to victory. Otherwise, discard the hero. Then you're going to add the new stats printed on the next hero to the bottom of your board here. Next, you're going to get their starting money and combat cards. Everyone starts with a certain number of combat cards from the exploration deck, as well as some amount of currency. Finally, you're ready to play. Each turn will have 2 phases, which is all listed here. The first phase is the Explore phase. Here, you will draw a card from this Explore deck, as well as doing some other actions. Now, you can take the actions listed here, buy, equip, trade, use, and do them as many times as you want and in any order, as long as sometime during this phase, you draw 1 and only 1 card from this Exploration deck. The Exploration deck has many different kinds of cards. You could reveal a card like this. If it has an eye on the bottom, you reveal it to all players and read the card out loud, usually it being a one-time effect. However, if it doesn't show an eye, you're going to add it to your hand as a secret and possibly play it later on in the game. Now, the kinds of cards you can get in here, for example, are boons as well as hazards. These are, if you can probably guess on the name, good and bad events. You can also draw combat cards. These are cards you'll actually start off with a few depending on what kingdom you choose, and you'll use these during combat. Then you have the chance to draw mavens. These cards, when revealed, you can either gain a one-time effect or add them to your inner circle. If you add them to your inner circle, they'll give you a special effect you can use later on. There can also be some rare cards you can tell because they'll have a unique foiling. Now, these could be either special equipments or, in this case, pools of essence, which are important locations throughout the story of the comic this game is based on. The equipments we'll go over a little bit later, but let's actually talk about the pool cards as they're very special. These are basically locations where you're going to do a sort of test, and by doing so, you're going to get usually a very strong power. For example, this card states that you can sacrifice your next hero in your line of succession, giving up basically an entire hero in order to gain the special ability on this card. The power here basically makes it so you will gain life back in here power whenever you deal damage in a battle, which makes fair as a trade-off as you may be giving up one hero, but with this you might be able to make your current hero unkillable. Remember, if it doesn't have an eye on the bottom, these cards will go to your hand until you decide to activate them. Now, outside of drawing an exploration card, you have some other actions you can do as well. First, let's talk about buying. This is pretty simple. It's all about buying the cards on the outside of the common area. Over to our left is the World Forge items, aka equipment. Though, like I said earlier, you may find some special equipment in the exploration deck. All equipment can either be held by hand, 1 or 2, chest armor, backpack, or head armor. If you can spend the coin equal to the cost in the top right corner, you can add your coins to the bank and then take the card and add it to the left of your board where you place equipment. Afterwards, make sure to refill the slot with a new equipment. The top are the skill cards that I mentioned before. They cost 10, equal to the level that you're buying. So the first time you buy in that slot, it will be 10 coins as it's a level 1. To go to level 2 will be 20, so on and so forth. Remembering, level 4 is a victory condition. There are 5 different kinds of skills, each of them with their own unique benefits that get stronger with each level. Keep in mind when you buy a card in the same skill tree, you might as well stack them, as even though the art is different, their abilities will be the same. In particular, I want to point out the Forge training skill, as every time you gain a level in that, you're going to be able to mark off one of these slots over here for your equipment. If a slot is marked here, what it means is from now on, if you are using an equipment card that has a marked slot, you're going to read the upgraded version instead of the normal power, making gear in that slot much stronger. Next up is equipping. If you ever buy equipment or earn equipment that you already have a slot for, you will return it to your hand. And this is when you could switch it out at any time if you want to change up and maybe there is a better piece of gear for what you're planning to do next. Next is trade. This allows you to initiate a trade with any player, and you can basically trade anything on your board as well as actions, such as a promise of not to attack, with the exception of trading heroes as well as classes and slain heroes. Everything else is fair game. So if you want to give a piece of equipment, maybe some battle cards, or like I said once again, a promise not to attack, you may do so. Finally, there's use. Some cards may have an ability to be used. This is when you would use them unless they state otherwise, when these cards would be triggered. Now, after you do any actions as well as draw the one mandatory exploration card, you then will move on to the next phase, build or attack. And as you can guess from the name, you'll either be doing building, which involves this over here, or attacking. Let's go over attacking first. Attacking will have you either attack a stronghold or an opponent's hero. Now, the stronghold can be one of the independent ones in the center or one controlled by another player. When attacking a stronghold, the main thing you're going to worry about is their printed defense here. If it's independent, that's basically all you need to worry about. If it is one controlled by another player, we'll go over that when we talk a bit more about attacking opponents' heroes as well. Now, when attacking, regardless of the target, the first thing you're going to do is write your printed attack stat right here. If you are the defender, that's where you'd put your defense stat. In this case, they're the same, but other heroes may have different attack and defense values, especially depending on what equipment they have. After that, you will have the option to take a combat card and place it face down here. If it's against an independent stronghold, you will not need to worry about anything else. If it's against an opponent, they too will have the option to play a combat card against you. Most of these either help you win the battle or make the loss sting less. Now, there are mainly 2 kinds of combat cards you need to worry about, in the sense that some will cost you money, while some will cost you power. You have to be able to pay for these cards in order to play them. Once everyone is ready, you will reveal the card you played, making sure you can pay for them. In this case, I didn't have it, but let's say I could, and doing whatever modification it has. More often than not, it's going to involve this die, where you see, unless a card says otherwise, if you don't play a card, or even if you do play a card, you're going to be rolling this battle die. And it has a value of +3 all the way to -3. Whatever you roll, you're going to add here. So in this case, it was a 3. Add up your total and see if you meet or beat the defense. Now, in this case, this would be considered a loss, but I probably would have played some combat cards that hopefully brought me to at least a 6 or higher. Now, let's actually talk about what happens when you attack an independent stronghold first. If you're able to meet or exceed that defense, you then claim that stronghold. You will add it to the top of your board here, and because it's an independent one, you will get the right to loot the coffers and gain a bonus of 6 coins right away. In addition to that, you're going to take the capital increase it adds there and add it over here to the build side. Everyone starts with the base value, but as you collect more usual strongholds, you're going to be able to increase this number. We'll go over that when we get to the build action. If it is a stronghold and controlled by an opponent, you will not gain that initial capital, but you still will get the increase in residual capital, and you will be able to claim that card as well. Now, let's say you defeated an opponent. This is going to be based on what their total defense is and your total attack is. So let's say that neither of us played any more attack cards and they rolled a +1, adding to their base of 1, making a 2. You're going to take 4 minus 2, and then they're going to lose that much power. If their power ever hits 0, you have successfully slain the hero, allowing you to add it to your top here, bringing you closer to that champion victory. Keep in mind though, if you had the lower value as the attacker, whether it is against the stronghold or against the opponent's champion, then you are going to lose that much power. Now though, let's say you want to be a bit more peaceful for now and you want to build. First, what you're going to do is gain money equal to your total residual capital. As I stated earlier, everyone has a base one, but you'll gain additional ones usually from what you've conquered. Then you're going to check mark a card on your build tree. This is basically a unique skill tree that every kingdom has. Now, in order to check mark something off, you will have to meet certain conditions. One, certain ones may have red text written at the bottom. You just have to meet whatever it says, such as this one saying you need to have slain a hero. Next, you need to be able to draw a line from either the residual capital or from another box that already has a check mark. So I cannot check mark this yet until these have been check marked. So for now, I would be able to check mark either that, or that if I had the slain hero. Once you have check marked it, you will activate the power. Some of them are one-time effects, some of them are ongoing, some of them can even be repeated. And of course, the next time you take a build action, if I check marked that power, I can now go down here and possibly check mark that one, allowing you to unlock more and more powers. Now, there are a few other rules I should mention before we continue. First off, there is the ability of things triggering at the start of your turn. Almost all the citadels have these. You can tell by the star symbol there. Usually, they will involve adding money to that citadel, which can be used for specific actions. However, anytime you would lose that citadel, be it someone else attacked it and defeated it, or you just traded it away, that money sticks with the card. So it makes it a bit more of a lucrative target. The other thing I should mention is you only have 3 heroes. If all 3 get slain, then you are knocked out of the game. So make sure you protect your heroes as you try to complete 1 or 2 of the victory conditions in order to prove your kingdom is the best of all of Numa Sera. So before I continue, I do want to point out, as it says on the box, this is a deluxe version that they sent me. It is still a prototype, but it shows off some of the deluxe components, the shiny flashier cards, the special battle die, but there's nothing in here that should be mechanically different from the other versions. Though, do of course check out their actual site in order to see what may be different from all the versions. That said, it can already be seen here. This is pretty close to what I think the actual game would be. At least it feels like it. I'm pretty sure if I didn't tell the people I was playing with this was a prototype, that they would have assumed I just purchased this game. The deluxe selves, obviously metal coins, the cool battle die. In particular, I'm in love with the more foily cards. I just think that looks really cool. In particular, the rare ones that will pop up throughout the exploration deck, as it really signifies that, well, they are rare. So definitely something I found really cool. That said, let's actually talk about the game itself. Theme-wise, like I said, this is based on a comic that was also crowdfunded. In fact, the creators of the comic are the ones working on this, so this is all in-house. This is not something that's just being handed off to some other people who just wanted to use the IP. So if you do know about the comic, you're going to recognize these characters, probably understand why their abilities are attached to those characters, as well as in particular, I think you're going to really like those rare items in the pools you find in the exploration deck. If you don't know anything about the comic, fear not. One, you can go read the comic, but you're still going to be able to understand the world, the mechanics, and still have fun here. For example, those pool cards, they are pools of essence, basically like mana or energy. They are very rare, hard to find, just like in the deck. They were created by the people who came before. But even if you don't know that, basically you're going to read the card and understand this is something rare and it's something that's going to give you a very good boon. So you still are going to get a lot of the feelings, even if you don't know exactly why or what they pertain to in the story. This is still going to have those feelings of a feudal fantasy kingdom and a kingdom where everyone, of course, is vying for power and backstabbing. Now, the way that they get that in here is going to come through all those victory conditions. Because it's not simply first to 10 points wins, and that there's actually 4 different ways for you to gain victory, it means that there are a lot of ways for you to slowly sneak around, maybe try to gather power here without trying to be too obvious. If you do the short game, so that's only needing to meet 1 victory condition, it's going to be a little bit harder because as soon as you're near 1, everyone's going to probably freak out and try to make sure that you don't claim victory there. But it also means that maybe if someone else is close to the victory, you can sneak around with a different one because everyone has their eyes set on the player who first got close to a victory condition. If you play the longer one, that one's going to be definitely a bit more interesting as there's going to be a give and take and be like, well, you are closer to the Conqueror one, but that's your first victory condition. I still got some time to do some setup here. So it definitely adds for, I think, the more fulfilling game definitely comes from the trying to get multiple of the victory conditions, just because the way people interact with each other, you still get that in the single victory one, the short game, but I definitely enjoyed the longer ones if you have the time, because you really will get more of that political calculus. Now, this is not a new idea, the idea of playing games with just a lot of political intrigue, players making deals with each other, trying to hide under the radar for victory conditions. If you like those kind of games, this is definitely the game for you. But what's really nice here is they obviously streamlined a lot of it and removed a lot of things that would just tax a lot of players' brains. That would maybe make those games maybe feel a bit more inaccessible, or at the very least feel like you really got to prepare for them. And that all comes down to the player boards. Those boards are so well designed, and because they're dry erase, you're going to write down your information clearly. So basically, when it's my turn, I can clearly look around the table. All right, this is the stats I have. You have that much power. Oh, you have tucked 3 citadels under your board, so you're close to that victory. I don't know why I keep using that one. You have that much money, which means you have a lot of money for your attack cards. It's really easy to just read what each player's state is without feeling like it's too convoluted. And when you do battles by writing on the board, it's very clear. So you know, all right, I'm starting off with 4 attack. All right. Ooh, I rolled a -2. -2 there. But battle card, it affected this. It just makes everything really understandable. Basically, your player aid is on the board. It's where you place your combat card. It tells you everything you do on your turn. It just makes things really simple and easy to understand, which is extremely helpful, especially when you have tons of different ways that you can change up your board. You've got different equipment. The citadels all have unique powers. Of course, the masteries you get and the cards in your hand until you play them usually in combat because they're attack cards. Let's not forget, each kingdom is very asymmetrical. They even tell you on the kingdom, like their board, like this kingdom is best for getting the conqueror victory. This one is really good at getting master, so on and so forth. So every time you play, there are going to be so many things that are interacting and changing up your board. But because of the way the board is designed, you're always going to know where that leads you, where it leaves your opponents, and not feel like you're just looking at some crazy spreadsheet. Rather, the ability to level up, unlock, and become more powerful, and still be able to say, well, I think I have a chance of beating you in combat. I'm increasing this odds by 5 power versus your 4 defense, and I think I can play more combat cards than you. It all just boils down to being able to have a lot of fun, weird, complex stuff without overloading the players at the table. What it comes down to is I think they did a great job in somehow balancing simplicity, streamlined ability, without actually sacrificing complexity and strategy. You're still going to be able to pull off crazy strategies, whether you're playing the short or long game, and you still feel pretty clever if you're able to pull off that victory without anyone noticing until it's your turn. But at the same time, you're not going to feel like you have to understand 6 different games, one for each victory, and you're not going to have to pause the game every 5 minutes to find out where everyone currently is. It's just easy to look around the table, know who's got the most attack, who's closer to which victories, and hopefully you'll be able to make sure you can keep an eye on the other players before they gain the victory conditions needed to finish either the short or long game before you can complete yours. But of course, if you want to know more about this game, you should head to the actual project page. I'll have a link down below as soon as it is live, and you can check out and see whether this is a game that you'll be interested in. Let me know your thoughts if you've actually read the comic beforehand, and maybe that's why you're interested in this, or are you coming in fresh into this world, and maybe through the game, you may be interested in reading more of what the comics have to offer. Love to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for watching this preview. I'm Will, and this is Roll for Crit.